Hello, everyone. Welcome to this virtual book launch event. It's the book launch of Inclusify, inclusifybook.com, and this is a book by Dr. Stefanie K. Johnson. We have 4 fabulous guests joining us today: Risha Grant, Tasha Eurich, Ralph Deshabert, and Dr. Cindy Pace. Please stay tuned for this wonderful, exciting book launch. Right now, you can share the tweets and comments. We're live on Facebook and on Twitter and on YouTube and on LinkedIn. Please tag your friends. My name is Sri Srinivasan, and I'm your host. I'm a professor, consultant, and former chief digital officer of New York City. Please follow @Inclusify Book. And please go to inclusifybook.com and the hashtag Inclusifybook. We'll get started in just a minute. Tag your friends, hit share, hit retweet right now. Inclusifybook.com. Hello, everyone. We're getting ready right now for the launch of this great book. Please tag your friends and please hit share. And now, please welcome Dr. Stefanie K. Johnson.
Hi, hello, Stefanie. Sri. How's it going?
It's great. I'm so excited for Pub Day. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I am so grateful for you hosting me again today after our Sunday positivity. And I'm obviously excited about my book launch, but I also and really conflicted because of the broader events that we are experiencing with the murders of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and the protests, and then before that, COVID. So it's hard to feel super celebratory, but it also just highlights how important it is to be talking about diversity and inclusion right now.
And this is something that we're going to focus on for the next hour. You have 4 friends stopping by. This is not the way that you would have wanted a book launch. You would have wanted hundreds of friends stopping by, but you picked 4 wonderful ones to come by. And we're just going to have a chat. We're going to learn about some of the secrets inside your book, and as well as hear the thoughts of your friends. And so before we get going, I thought I would just introduce everyone properly to Stefanie K. Johnson. She is an author, professor, and keynote speaker who studies the intersection of leadership and diversity, focusing on 2 things: how unconscious bias affects the evaluation of leaders and strategies that leaders can use to mitigate bias. She works with the best companies in the world to create more inclusive leaders, and has extensive consulting experience, and has created and delivered leadership development training with an emphasis on evidence-based practice. Her new Harper Collins book, Inclusify, Harnessing the Power of Uniqueness and Belonging to Build Innovative Teams, which shares the surprising ways that leaders undermine inclusion and provides actionable ways that leaders can pivot to build more inclusive teams. So Stefanie, that is so exciting that you've been able to put this book together. How long did you work on this book?
Oh, I guess I could give you 2 answers. I can say for the last 20 years, because this has been my area of study and what most of my research all focuses on. But really, I'd say I worked on it deeply over the last 2 years. So since 2018, where I'm like, I need to do this. This has to get done.
And what did you learn about the world of business that you may not have known after you started writing the book?
So, I think the biggest thing that I that really came across to me is when I was trying to study diversity and unconscious bias, I was blown away by how positive and how much people were trying to actually get this right, but they were just kind of slightly missing the mark. They weren't ill-intentioned. They really wanted to do best by their employees and create the most cohesive, effective, inclusive teams. They just didn't always know how to do it. And some of the things that they were doing just actually ended up undermining the people who they were trying to support.
Folks, if you're joined us, we're just getting started on the book launch for inclusifybook.com and the book from Harper Collins. Please make sure you share this, and also please tag and share and retweet from all of Dr. Johnson's accounts at Dr. Steph Johnson, and make sure that your friends who could benefit from this conversation are here with us. They can watch live or later. We were saying that this is not exactly the way you would have launched a book, but you thought it was important to get us all together, and a leader pivots, and that's what you have done.
Absolutely. I mean, in all of the casualties of COVID-19, I think my book launch is probably really not that big a deal. And I am super grateful for all of my friends being here today and just having this conversation and starting what I hope is a very long journey to celebrate Inclusify.
Right. It doesn't have to be just on pub day, pub week, pub month, pub year, because this is an evergreen story, and lots of evergreen stories inside. And you've got lots of stats and things that will surprise people. I'd love for you to give us a couple of highlights.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I found super useful in the book is just focusing on the archetypes of leaders who are just like slightly missing the mark, like I said. And so there might be leaders who are super good at building culture, but they're not as good at really supporting difference and encouraging people to bring their unique perspectives. And then there's other leaders who might really be trying to promote diversity and supporting women and people of color and the LGBTQ community, but the way they communicate that to others actually creates conflict in their teams. So maybe they say, we need to promote a woman because we need more women. And, no one promotes a woman because she's a woman. You promote people because they're going to do the best possible job. And just like a slight change in that message can make all the difference.
One of the things that we talked about on my show on Sunday was the idea that at this moment, when businesses are in trouble and we're talking about 40 million people unemployed and so much financial pain all over the country, that's when they say, oh, diversity isn't as important. We've got to focus on other things. And your message is what?
I say just the opposite. I think my guests here, I'll ask them to speak to that as well. But I think this is the time when diversity and inclusion is the most important. We talked about pivoting. That means innovating, being creative. And we know that teams that are more diverse, and particularly teams that are diverse and inclusive, are more creative, innovative, and actually make better decisions. So if you could really harness that power, like the title of the book, you could have a leg up on trying to be creative and pivot what your organization's doing. And then the other thing I'll just say is I don't think diversity has ever been so top of mind for people right now because of the disparities that we saw with COVID-19, the additional challenges that the Black community faced in response to that, the challenges of being a parent, homeschooling your kids while you're still probably, I'm a professor half the time and like a first grade teacher the other half, and second grade teacher the other half the time. And so leaders need to really be thinking about these things and really communicating with their teams that they see them and they understand the different challenges that they're facing.
All right, we're going to get ready to bring on our guest. But before that, I want to tell everyone who's watching live or later that it's really important that they go to inclusifybook.com, get a copy of the book, support the good doctor. But we're also going to tell you that you can read a free chapter at inclusifybook.com, and you can also get a chance to win a copy of the book if you post with at Dr. Steph Johnson, at Dr. Steph Johnson. And if you use the hashtag InclusifyBook, we'll put you in a sweepstakes to win a free copy of the book. So that's exciting, but we also want you to buy a copy of the book. And the book you might win, give that to a friend, because everybody needs to learn these lessons. And it isn't just for leaders who are already leaders, right? This book is useful for all levels in corporate
Absolutely.
America and corporations around the world.
Yeah, and there's lessons for women and people of color in particular, whether they're in leadership roles or aspiring to leadership roles, how to navigate that.
That's great. So are you ready to get started and bring on our guests?
Thank you.
I'm so excited, and I wish you the very best. We'll come back on later, but right now let's go to our guests and we'll get started. All right, so now we're going to bring on Dr. Ralph Deschabert. He is Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity, Inclusion, and Global Community Relations Officer for Brown-Forman Corporation, the makers of Jack Daniels and other famous alcoholic drinks. In this role, Deschabert is responsible for developing and implementing a global diversity and inclusion strategy with an initial focus in the United States. He also serves on Brown-Forman's executive leadership team. And now, Ralph Deschabert.
Hello, Ralph. Thank you so much for being here.
You're more than welcome. Congratulations. I've got this big smile on my face, Stephanie, because I think it's wonderful that the book is published, as I've heard, Pub Day. I love the idea, and I'm happy for you. It's good work. So congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I wanted you to be here today because in the book, it's not just my thoughts and ideas and research on diversity and inclusion. So much of it is what I learned from companies or other scholars and authors. And one of those companies is Brown-Forman and the work that you're doing there. And so I wanted you to be here today just to maybe give your perspective on why diversity and inclusion is just so important right now.
That's really easy. I mean, remember, I've been at this work for over 30 years, Stephanie, and I've done this work both as a consultant and I've done the work in-house as a chief diversity officer. And what I know for over 30 years, this work has consistently been some of the most important work that any organization can do. And I know that sounds like, it's hyperbolic and being a lot of hyperbole, but the fact of the matter is that leveraging differences for the benefit of any of our organizations is crucial, because the fact of the matter is no one of us is as smart as all of us. And so the challenge is leveraging all of that difference that we have in order to make the organization better. So this time is great and has been consistently an important piece of work to do.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
I asked you this yesterday when we had a chance to chat, but I wanted to ask you how you were doing today. We talked about the riots and the murders of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and many other men before that. I wonder, just how are things in Louisville today?
There's a fair amount of tension. There's a fair amount of sadness. There's anger. There's frustration. It's a very difficult time in our city, and in many ways, Louisville. It's the home of Muhammad Ali, and we celebrate the champ. And at the same time, we know that we can overcome lots of obstacles, lots of barriers. But this one, the virus, but two, these. The murder of Breonna and all of the other challenges that are going around in the country really force us to look at the disparities that exist when you start thinking about root cause issues. And when we're confronting those issues, it's sadness, it's frustration, but somewhere in there, there's hope. And that's what we're trying to hold on to while we have these tensions that are pulling us in different directions in this city. But Louisville's a good place, and we'll move to the right place in time. But it's gonna take a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any suggestions for people listening of what they can do as leaders or as organizations, or you can share what you're doing at Brown-Forman to really try to get to that positivity and bring people back together?
I think we have to remember that we are all in this together, whether it's fighting COVID-19, whether it's the riots that have taken place, The protesters, I think it's the right thing to do. They should be protesting. It's unfortunate that the circumstances bring people to the place where we have to focus and protest. But I would say, as leaders, and every one of us is capable of being a leader, but all of us, I really think, need to model the right behaviors that speak to what your book is about, which is being inclusive and creating a sense of belonging.
See, this is why I've learned so much from you, and this is why I wanted to invite you here today. Also, just to share my gratitude with you for all of your collaboration and insight. Dr. Deshabert, thank you so much for coming and joining me on my book launch, and I hopefully will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel humble, and I love the progress you've made with this, Steph. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Our next guest is Tasha Eurich. She is an organizational psychologist, executive coach, researcher, and New York Times bestselling author. She uses science to help successful leaders, from early stage entrepreneurs to public company CEOs, achieve dramatic and measurable change. Her clients include IBM, the NBA, and the White House Leadership Development Program. Her TEDx talks have been viewed more than 6 million times. Famed Wharton professor Adam Grant called her latest book, Insight, one of the 3 books he recommends most often to others. And now, Dr. Tasha Eurich.
Hello, my friend. Thank you so
Hi,
much.
Steph.
I said, just as I was interviewing Ralph, I said that one of the things that Inclusify has so much of is insights from different people who I respect and have learned a lot from. And you are certainly one of those people. So from bankable leadership to your book, Insight, which I love. And then I know you have another project coming. I thought maybe you could add some insight to why self-awareness is so important right now. And then we'll get to your other project in a second.
Sounds great. And look what came in the mail immediately before we went live.
No way!
I was so excited. First of all, I'm just so happy for you and excited for you. And this couldn't be a more important topic for us to be talking about now. So thank you for having me.
Yes. So why do you think self-awareness is so important right now?
Well, I think it's one of the oldest principles in human history. Know thyself. And yet so many of us have so much more work to do than we think in really knowing who we are and how we're seen by others and how we fit into the world around us. Here's a good example, something that just happened to me in the last week that I think underscores how important your work is and the conversations we've really started to accelerate. So I'm working with a new executive team. I'm doing individual interviews of everyone. And one of the questions I was asking was, if you could choose 1 or 2 things to make this organization better, what would they be? And one of the top 3 answers has been, we need to be a more diverse executive team. We need to be a more diverse organization. And what's so interesting to me is almost every member of this team said that. And it got me thinking, we talk about the they in organizations, they as the other members of the team, they as, other people making decisions. But I think this is a probably better time than we've ever had to really look at ourselves in the mirror and realize that the they are us. Right? And really trying to take ownership of the role that we are playing as leaders, as humans, as people who just want to be a part of the solution. And so I think that's a very timely reminder. And it was something that, in my journey of self-awareness, I learn constantly how much more work I have to do. And I think that idea of listening and being as curious and open as possible about how we can be a better part of the solution, it just couldn't be more important.
I love that. Thank you. And now one of the things that you and I have been talking about is your next project, which I'm really excited about, which is about interpersonal injuries at work. And I feel like this is something I hear all the time right now, every day from people, particularly around diversity and inclusion. But I wonder if you're willing to give us a little sneak peek about what you're finding.
Sure. So the background on this is sort of funny in a really weird, perverse way. Earlier, actually later in 2019, I started working on a book that I was titling in my head, When Bad Things Happen. Right. And little did I know what 2020 would bring us. And so, even then, in the 15 years that I've been an organizational psychologist, you just hear story after story of people in organizational environments who feel betrayed or hurt or undermined by the people they work with. Sometimes it's a horrible boss, whether it's intentional or not. Sometimes it's a coworker, sometimes it's a client or a customer. And people, from my perspective, are walking around with these immense amounts of pain and suffering. And what I wanted to do was get a better understanding of what are these, so-called bad things. What are the different ways that we intentionally or unintentionally hurt each other, specific to a work context? That's really important. And so what my research team has done, we started at the very beginning of March, actually, when everything was starting to get very scary with COVID. Our goal is to interview 500 working adults to figure out what are the different ways, again, that we experience these interpersonal injuries? What are our options for response? What are some of the hidden secrets or surprises that are, again, based on science, not just sort of me sitting here in my office thinking of things, but what actually works? And one really interesting kind of snippet that we're getting so far is a lot of people are telling us their story. There are these 20-minute interviews with, in most cases, a person interviewing them that they've never met. And one of our last questions is, can you tell me what it was like to tell this story today? And people cry, it's so incredibly moving, for us to hear the story, but also for people to share that story. And what we keep hearing over and over again is, I've actually never told another person this entire thing from beginning to end. And I don't have all the answers, but I feel like that insight is a really important piece of the solution to really help people. So a lot more to come, but that's been inspiring and really exciting so far.
I love that so much. I can't wait to read it. And I think that's so in line with what I've been finding around diversity and inclusion, that people need to be listened to, they need to be heard and feel seen. And managers don't always want to have these conversations. They might feel like they're difficult conversations to have, particularly around race. Like, Tasha, that I'm Mexican-American. So I've always talked about race. Like when you're a person of color, it's just like you always talk about race. But I think for a lot of white leaders, they haven't had that opportunity to talk about race. So it might feel pretty threatening. But when they do, it's so cathartic, I think, for both people. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And I think what's so important right now for all white people, and I can't, just to speak for myself, is to show up and to listen and to be able to have those conversations primarily from a place of support and not talking, right? For a good time to listen.
The listening, definitely. So thank you, Tasha, for being here. Tasha, who is obviously, New York Times bestseller, has been so kind to be a mentor to me, even though I am quite a bit older than you. You have been
dual mentors. I think that's important to say.
I don't know. I don't think so. But thank you so much, Tasha, for your support. I cannot wait to read your next book.
Congrats, Steph.
Thanks.
And that was Dr. Tasha Eurich. We've already heard from Ralph Deschabert, and we'll be hearing in a few minutes from Dr. Cindy Pace and Risha Grant. You're watching Inclusify, the book launch, the virtual book launch event. The book is by Dr. Stefanie K. Johnson, author, professor, and speaker. Please make sure you go to inclusifybook.com and share this with your friends. Make sure you get a copy for yourself. My name is Sri Srinivasan, and I'm your MC for today. I'm going to bring back Stefanie Johnson and say, hi, how are you feeling?
I feel so good. So you see, this is like asking smart people questions and listening. It's like, this is amazing. I learned so much every day, and from all of the people I talk to, and people will say, thank you so much for teaching us about diversity and inclusion. I'm always like, I don't know that I taught you anything. I feel like I'm the one that walked away with all this great knowledge. And I feel like I'm experiencing that right now. Just like, I love getting these insights from the smartest people in the world.
And you have 2 more people still to come after this, so that's exciting. And this shows that your kind of your convening power. You're able to bring these great people together. Let's chat a little bit before we bring our next guest on. We want to ask you, how personal is this issue of diversity and inclusion to you? And I know you look at it in multiple ways, right? Not just race and ethnicity, because that's obviously very important, but you also look at it in terms of economic diversity and why that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I said with Tasha there, I am Mexican American. It's like a big part of my identity. I'm also a woman, and I work in a really masculine industry. I'm a business professor, and there's not a lot of Mexican women, but I'm also a first generation college student. And, one of the things I'd say that was a challenge for me in growing up was being really poor and kind of trying to hide that. And I'm saying this not that I'm proud that I tried to hide this part of myself, and grown up Steph is like, why didn't you just like be who you were and it's accepted and say, look what I'm doing, despite my circumstances. But I think like a lot of people, you want to hide these things, and that for me really stood in the way of me feeling included. Even people might have been open to including me, it's like I left myself out by not telling them or giving them information about the real me. And so that's a lot of that. I think I wasn't intending to write a book about me. It's not me search, but as I was writing it, just a lot of the stuff really brought up some of my own personal experiences throughout my life.
You were not trying to write about yourself, and you don't want to talk about yourself too much, but
right.
It's your party. So I'm going to ask you, I thought it'd be fun. I have an idea for a book. How about Letters to Young Steph from Stefanie Johnson, professor,
yes.
PhD. This was not the path that would have been preordained for you.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't know how many people have like the path of going to get a PhD, although it seems like all of my guests have PhDs, but definitely for me, with my parents not having gone to college, they weren't like pushing me to aspire to this, but I think that's really why I value education so much. And I will never leave the academy if they'll keep me. I guess that's the beauty of tenure, that I think education is like one of the huge differentiators. If you get education, you learn things, you're becoming smarter, but you also always have that piece of paper and those credentials that no one can take away from you.
Before we bring on your next guest, I want to ask you, how do you feel about this moment and everything that's happening in America right now, the pandemic, as well as the protests that are happening and the very tragic social justice and racial equality situation in this country? What is your message to leaders who are watching right now?
I think that on the bad side of this is like there's a lot of people who are struggling and in pain and dealing with just huge economic and personal challenges. But here's the other thing. A lot of our communities have been dealing with those things before COVID-19, before the issues that have emerged lately around racial equality. And now it's just, we're talking about it. And so I think it's an opportunity as well, because people are suddenly like aware, like now that you've seen it for yourself, you're like, this is horrible. Like we need to do something. And that to me just has a lot of power to create change. It's like the status quo is broken, right? There's no like, well, the way we've always done it is, because we're all just like making it up as we go along, right? Everyone's like, how do I work at home with my kids upstairs, and trying to figure all these things out. And we can rebuild our organizations to be better, more inclusive places that have actually come out, and people can come together and heal, and we can all be stronger. Like I think of a few years ago, oh, so horrible. My daughter broke her leg, and that break in her leg, I remember going to the doctor and they x-rayed it after it healed, and it was thicker than it ever had been before. And it was thicker than the other leg, right? The bone grows back thicker and stronger. And I think that's what the message needs to be to managers and leaders is, let's grow back and heal, but better than we were before.
Now, this is a family that knows how to help you. Even their medical issues give you an anecdote that you can use. That's wonderful. That's everybody.
It shows you how like moms and dads, parents are always thinking about their kids, right? There's always like this running dialogue in the back of their head about their children.
All right. Are you ready for our next guest?
I'm ready.
Okay. So I'm just going to remind everyone to make sure you go to inclusifybook.com, get a copy of the book, and make sure you also enter our giveaway by tweeting at Dr. Steph K. Johnson, and also making sure that you use the hashtag InclusifyBook. And we have instructions that will be scrolling along, but we really want you to follow at Inclusify Book and go to the website. So we'll see you in a little bit. Our next guest is Cindy Pace. Dr. Pace is Vice President, Global Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at MetLife, where she leads the global D&I strategy for an enterprise-wide employee base of 49,000 in nearly 40 countries. Aligned to the company's business imperative, strategy drives and promotes D&I as critical success factors to fuel innovation, cross-cultural collaboration, and business success. She has 20 years of corporate management experience working in financial services, healthcare, and biopharma. She's also a global scholar practitioner and is an inaugural faculty member and lecturer at Columbia University School of Professional Studies in the Human Capital Management Program. And now, Dr. Cindy R. Pace.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here. I talk about bringing the smartest people together. I love you so much and everything you're doing. So thank you for joining me in this launch today.
You know what, Stephanie, thank you for having me. I mean, I have been just listening in amazement at your network of friends. And I'm just so happy for you that your book is launching at a critical time in our world. We need to understand how to inclusify. So thank you for having me. And I look forward to our chat.
Yeah, so I know, Cindy, you are part of this great community of chief diversity officers who are trying to find ways to help organizations heal. What are leaders doing right now to address the racial injustices that we've been experiencing?
You know, what's so interesting is earlier this week, I had the opportunity of being on a call with a group of chief diversity officers that we meet at least twice a month. And we were all sharing, what is it that we need to do? So we talked about what's the most important thing. And it's something that Tasha just said to you. And it was really about how do we build allyship and make sure that people are showing up, they're letting people know I'm with you, and they're listening, and then they're also doing their own homework. They're not putting the responsibility off on others. So what we're doing in organizations are a number of things. You might have noticed that over the weekend, a number of CEOs took to social media and put out statements. And it was very important because many of our organizations are part of one of the largest CEO-driven initiatives called the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. And this is the brainchild of Tim Ryan, who is the US chairman at PwC. If you look up his letter, he wrote a very heartfelt note, and that was followed by a number of CEOs. So first of all, it was important in our organizations, but also in the communities that we serve around the world, that people understood what this meant personally to our CEO, our leadership, as well as our employee base. The second thing that's continuing to happen is not only statements were made externally on social media outlets, but internally. So making sure that every employee understands how important this is and how it's aligned to building, fostering, cultivating, whatever word you want to choose, a culture of inclusion. So we talked about those statements and how those statements were rolled out in the organization. The next thing that organizations decided to do is have a conversation. So it's not enough to have a statement because, you know, while that's great, people are hurting. People are disturbed. People are angered. And people are confused. And people are scared. And so while a statement is powerful, it cannot replace conversations. So in our organizations, what we are all doing collectively is having conversations around racial injustice, conversations around building allyship, valuing differences. We are confronting what do we need to mitigate bias in our organizations, and how do we build more inclusive organizations that can build sound structures of inclusion and really get rid of systemic barriers and create more equity. So I think what I'm excited about most that our chief diversity officers are doing is really driving these conversations. And what we're in driving the conversation, we're not doing it alone. This is our opportunity to partner with people like you, Stefanie, and we have other thought leaders that are coming into our organization and partnering with us on how to have these conversations and how to continue them. Because I think the one thing that we talked about is important is it can't be a one and done event. You know, we don't have the conversation and do the hands holding across the world, kumbaya, sing together and think that it's over. This builds our muscle to continue to have courageous conversations around race and other topics of difference.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned Tim Ryan. He's one of the leaders I interviewed for the book who just like really moved me with his story and how committed he is to this issue and how fearless he is at confronting it.
Absolutely. It's an example. There's a talk that I do when I'm guest lecturing, and I talk about the age of the CEO activists. For so many years, chief diversity officers have been on the front line, and we've kind of been out there, you know, supporting our organizations. And now we have our chief executive officers joining us. And I think Tim is an example of a CEO activist who is taking his platform, his position, and his power, and he's using it to make a meaningful difference, not only within his organization, but within the entire country. And we're so proud to be part of the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion.
Absolutely. You're such a great organization in that life. Cindy, Dr. Cindy Pace, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you and everything you're doing. And then hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Congratulations again, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Risha Grant. She's an international diversity and inclusion author and expert. She travels the world giving an edgy, straight, no-chaser take on this sensitive subject. When she's not speaking, she covers this topic as NBC's community correspondent and host of Risha Talk series on KJRH and in her monthly column. For 25 years, she has helped clients such as Samsung, Chevron, Cox, Boy Scouts of America, Discover Card, and the U.S. Air Force, among others, to get rid of their BS.
Hello, Risha. How's it going?
Hi, Stefanie. It's great. How are you?
I am super well. Thank you for joining me here today. You were driving across the country before you got here?
Not really across the country, from Oklahoma to Arkansas for a call I got from the military to come and speak tomorrow. So it just less than 24 hours, had to get in the car and hit the road. And so thanks for being flexible.
Oh, absolutely. I haven't left. I don't know that I left Boulder in the last 3 months. So that's impressive.
I haven't either. It felt good to be on the road, although I'm still a little worried.
Oh, I know. So one of the reasons I really wanted you to be here, so thank you for being here, is that we're talking about these important conversations we need to have. And one of the things I love about you and your work is that it's like no BS.
Right.
So what are the conversations that we need to be having right now?
we just need to listen. I mean, the conversations are extremely important, but I think, especially when I think about Inclusify in your book, I love that it speaks to leaders. And I think leaders need to be listening right now, but we need to have conversations around allyship. The text and the emails and everything that I'm getting from clients and honestly, just white folks who I have relationship with are saying, what can I do? How do I show up? How can I show my heart right now? And so those are the conversations. And then that other conversation is back to leadership. Leadership is going to have to drive this. And it's extremely important that I think that they drive it from the heart. You know, we focus a lot on data when it comes to diversity, but it's time to stop focusing on the business case and focus on the moral case for it.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of my friends, most of my friends, probably all say in Boulder, are white, right? Like Boulder's a pretty white town. Are like, what do I say? I don't know what to say. And I'm like, that's what you say. It's like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how you're feeling. And I don't care. And I want to know. And I'm open to hear, right?
Yeah.
I think those are the things that people just need to open the door. And then you will know a little bit more. You'll never fully know like what it feels like, but at least you'll hear a little bit. So I want to also hear, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then when you hear it, you have to receive it, you know, and not blow off that experience, or actually give that experience some validation and not be fragile in your own thoughts or your own thinking, because it may be something that you find offensive, or, you know, kind of makes you feel negative about it. So we have to validate those experiences and those thoughts.
Oh, that's a really good point. So it's listening without judgment.
Right.
So I also want to hear about your new project, your new book, and what you're doing. I'd love to hear anything that you want to share with my guests or your guests who are here listening today.
Well, the concept of the book is called Radical Acceptance. And you, as an author, you know, the title goes through many different forms, and hopefully you arrive at the best one. But the concept of radical acceptance is the willingness to lose everything to be you. And, you know, basically we're taught what normal is from the time that we're born. And the issue with the word normal is that it came about based on people who didn't bother to ask the whole world what was normal to them. So we kind of go through life trying to figure out who we are, and we become people we don't want to become, or we don't love who we want to love, or we don't take the job or the career that we really want, all because we're trying to live in the bubble that either our parents or someone in our lives thought that we should live. And at some point, it's worth it to fight for you, to throw all those norms out of the window and actually be who you are. And in some cases, you have to be willing to lose everything to get there. You know, that may be family, that may be the job that you have, the comfort. You know, growth doesn't come from comfort. You get growth from discomfort. So it is really about radically accepting who you are, so that you can then pass that on to another person, extend that love toward them, so they also feel comfortable being who they are.
I love that so much. It seems like a great companion to Inclusify, which is about what leaders can do to encourage you to be yourself. But I'll quote one of my very recently minted PhD students, Salwa Rahim Dillard, who said, you know, inclusion is co-created. I can encourage you to be yourself, but you have to also be willing to take that risk and be who you are.
And why is it such a risk, you know, to be yourself?
I know, it's true. I feel like maybe Gen Zers have it a little bit more together with like recognizing who they are and why that's valuable. But you know, we have to unlearn. I have to learn a lot of what I was taught. So I think that's huge.
Definitely.
I know this was quite a feat for you to join us today. So thank you so much, Risha, for taking the time to come and give me your no BS and talk about your new project. And I hope we can connect again soon.
Definitely. Congratulations to you on your new book. So everybody go out and buy Inclusify.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Another great guest, Risha Grant, author of That's BS. We were earlier joined by Dr. Tasha Eurich, author of Insight, Ralph Deshabert, SVP and CDIO of Brown-Forman Corporation of Jack Daniels fame, and Dr. Cindy R. Pace, VP Global CDIO of MetLife. So let's come back again with Stefanie. How was that? That was like a...
I know,
amazing
they're
classroom.
so
I
amazing.
presume your classes every day are like that, right? Just these people coming in and hanging out.
Absolutely. Everyone should take my class because I bring in CEOs and CIOs and CDIOs and like New York Times bestselling authors and world-renowned speakers all the time, every day. And all
Well, we don't need all of them because we've got you. Let's remind everyone of the book and why you wrote it, and what will people get if they go right now to inclusifybook.com and buy a copy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think definitely go to Inclusify Book and buy a copy, or anywhere books are sold. You can go to Harper Collins. And what you'll get is a mix of science, because I'm a scientist, and heartfelt stories. Some are about myself and some are about other people, and insights from the best CEOs and leaders in America who are willing to share their experiences, even though, you know, they're not all perfect. They had warts along the way, but I find it really inspiring to say that these people who are so good at this, it was a journey for them too. And then the other thing it gives you is just, here's some practical steps to pivot. Like, what can you do tomorrow to create a more inclusive team?
Thank you. And we want everybody to also use the social handles at Inclusify Book, and the website is inclusifybook.com. And I want to ask you, in terms of how you were putting this book together, did you envision that when we were here in 2020, when the book came out, that the issues of race and inclusion and diversity would be this front and center?
I was kind of hoping it would all be solved, but no. But no, I mean, I think probably from 2016, you know, with the start of the Me Too movement, and I think just the recognition of the importance, the business case for diversity, as study after study came out showing that diverse and inclusive teams make better decisions, have better profits, have higher return on assets, greater stock prices. I think that all kind of work together to make this issue front and center. But now I think it's more top of mind because we're having the heart part. And I think that's the interesting missing piece. And my heart part is at the door. Hello? Are there people out there?
Uh-oh, what's going on?
I asked my kids to come downstairs and join this party, because if this had been an in-person launch, I would want nothing more than to share it with the three people who I dedicated Inclusify to, the loves of my life, Katie, Johnson, Kyle, and Peter, who are hopefully will live in a more inclusive world when they grow up. Do you guys want to say hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I swear
Guy,
there's
where's your
a
face?
boy child back there.
Guy, come on. There.
He's hiding.
Some tooth problems.
He has a loose tooth.
Ooh, you want to show?
It's like,
Document it for everyone forever,
Can
so
you
we
show
can
it,
see
buddy?
your loose tooth.
Well, isn't it the role of mommy to pull the tooth out right now on live television?
Oh my gosh, Sri, I tell them that all the time. I want to pull your teeth, and they think that's terrifying, don't you?
yeah. It's
Guy,
terrifying.
show the tooth, buddy. You don't have to pull it out. Just show it. You gotta open your mouth up.
He's not going to do it.
So can I ask Peter a question? Peter, what's it been like to live with an author as she's writing this book and very busy prepping for events like this?
Always exciting and very interesting. We have fantastic dinner conversations that span topics from biology to society to everything in between.
And it's been, I presume, not so easy on lockdown for the kids. Can we hear from them? How has it been locked down in the home for almost 3 months?
Yeah, guys, how's homeschool going?
Interestingly.
How do you like
love the teacher? What do you think of the teacher who's teaching you homeschooling?
What do you think of the teachers?
Who's better? Who's your favorite teacher of the two teachers you have?
It's definitely him. It's not his day, but it is. He is a biology professor and brings all of that to our kids. So we had 13 salamanders living in our dining room that we were raising. So there's a lot of science going on that I think this is super fun. Like teaching the kids business topics, they really don't think it's that cool.
I mean, when has stuff like frogs in it, then I'm always
Frog business.
Exactly. Frog business.
Yeah.
That's my business.
I love the frog business. That's pretty scary. Didn't I hear that some of those salamanders may not have been all there right now? If we count, maybe some are hiding under other places in the house.
We hope that is the answer, but some of it we don't want to talk about because salamanders.
One of the salamanders ate the other salamanders.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
that's the polite way of saying it.
This is something the kids know. We try to protect, don't we, parents? We try to protect kids from things, and they know more than us.
Cannibalism. It happens.
We teach our kids about cannibalism.
Yes, you do. That's what happens when there's like a story or joke in here, right? A biology professor and a management professor get together, and we'll have to write those punchlines separately at another occasion. Folks, want to remind everybody that we want you to go to inclusifybook.com, get a copy of the book. Please leave a review. All of this matters to help get the message out. She's done such great work, and we want everybody to see this. So you can all do your part. Everybody watching right now, share this on social. Even if you're watching later, that's perfectly great to share and to make sure your friends and family buy a copy of the book. And there's so much to learn here, right, Steph? It's not just for the very top leaders. It's everybody who wants to be a top leader as well.
I think it's for everyone, anyone who is trying to be a better leader or person or create a better workplace for their children and for the future. I think read Inclusify. Everyone can find something in there. Katie's reading it right now, right?
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Some big words.
There's some big words.
All right. So what do they do at a book launch where there's, when it's a virtual book launch? I guess we want to make sure that everybody gives the author a big hug and a big kiss. Let's all do that.
Thank you.
And here are some of the comments. Christina says, congrats, Steph. Can't wait to read the book. And so many folks watching. Laura says, so excited to read your new book. And I know your students and others will be watching this. We're very excited for you. We wish you the very best and all the good wishes for this book and your career.
Thank you so much, Sri. I really appreciated you and getting to know you and spending some time with you. I love your message of positivity. And I cannot believe that you have been doing live web chats for the last
84 days today, and it's been going nonstop. Yeah,
I think Sri needs a round of applause, guys.
Yeah, no. It's all you. It's your day. Inclusifybook.com, and we want everyone to take a look and get to know Dr. Stefanie K. Johnson. We'll leave the final word to the good doctor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for people who came in, shared this moment with me. I love you all. I think there's a lot of work we have to do, but that there's also a lot of hope, and that with healing, we become stronger. And there's ways that anyone can start. Doesn't matter where your journey has taken you. It doesn't matter if you were perfect or imperfect yesterday. I was imperfect yesterday. You can always learn and grow and do better and create a more inclusive workplace.
All right. And with that, we'll say goodbye. We'll show everyone what they just missed so they can watch it again if they've joined us halfway through or just towards the end. Let's show all the great guests we had. It's really amazing how you were able to get them all in the middle of everything that's going on. It speaks a lot to you, Doctor. So let's take a look. We were joined by Risha Grant, author of That's BS. We were joined by Dr. Cindy R. Pace, VP Global and CDI at MetLife, and Ralph Deschabert, SVP and CDIO of Brown Forman Corp, of makers of Jack Daniels, and Dr. Tasha Eurich, author of Insight. And with that, we'll say goodnight and goodbye. Please share this video with all your friends, and please go to inclusifybook.com, #Inclusifybook, and follow @InclusifyBook. Good night, everybody. Goodbye.